Hey everyone, Corey Poirier here. Just checking in before you listen to this new episode of the show to let you know that my new book, The Enlightened Passenger, is now officially available to order. And you can jump over to thisisthebook.com today. And just by grabbing a copy, you'll actually get 5 uber cool, I'm saying they're uber cool, you get to decide that, free bonuses with the book. They are all listed on the site, but as an example, one is how to land your brand to talk, so training around that. Another is access to my Get Paid to Speak book. Also, Top 10 Insights Guide, a training that has never aired before that I revealed about how to charge what you're worth versus what you would normally maybe charge. And then an exclusive training by a friend of our show who's a really big name, and it's around the idea of how to build the life of your dreams and the business of your dreams. So actually, those are the bonuses. So head over to thisisthebook.com today, grab your bonuses before the pre-order ends and or before the bonuses go away. Thanks everybody for checking the show out, and until next time, I'm Corey Poirier. Hello, everybody. It's Corey Poirier, and I'm back with the latest edition of the show. I'm super excited to have a first-time guest with us today. As our listeners know, it's always exciting to bring on. I always enjoy bringing on somebody brand new to the show. And so, Anita Parker, I'm really excited to have you with us. And what we do here that's a little different is our introduction. So instead of me reading a bio, or making up a bio, I usually like to ask the guests to tell us about themselves because they know themselves a little better than we would. So Anita, can you tell us just a little bit about who you are, your background, what you do before we dive fully in?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone, and thank you, Corey, for having me on. I'm so excited to be here. And there are so many facets of Anita Parker, but I think to all encompassing, I care deeply for humans and creating community, connection, and belonging. I feel socially responsible for being a voice and locking arms with exceptional humans to create change, not just in my community, but rippling out into the world. So I am a multi-passionate entrepreneur. I do have businesses in the restaurant industry. I have speaking that I do through monthly events to elevate and empower women, both in Kelowna and Fort McMurray. And I'm a certified life and business coach. So I really teach people how to live their best life.
Mm. Wow. And so, I mean, that brings up to me an important follow-up. What does best life mean to you? So when you say live their best life, what is their best life? And obviously I understand somebody's best life might be different than somebody else's best life in their definition, but I just love to get, when you say living their best life, what does that mean to you, somebody living their best life?
It really means finding out to the core of who that human being is and what they want to achieve in their life, personally, professionally, spiritually. So it really isn't a cookie cutter. It's more about dialing in and working one on one with individuals, whether it's personally or professionally. It all comes together regardless, which is incredible. And really dialing in what their best life would be for them. And what ends up happening is they create more of what I think a lot of people call is their dream life. And the thing with living your best life is it's not always roses. It's not the highlight reels. It's about having those shifts, those falls to actually complete a cycle of where they are in their life, personally or professionally, to grow into what they're really supposed to be walking and talking in their life.
Mm. Wow. I mean, I love that. What they're supposed to be walking and talking. I love that. So, because, I do believe that uh, right now, let's be honest, there's a lot of people that are struggling. And I'm sure a lot of people that would say they're not living their best life. So I think it's important that both we start doing it on more of a scale, and maybe just as important, we actually know how to define it. Because the other thing I think is probably true is there's no way to live your best life if you don't know what your best life is. Like,
Yes.
now, having said that, you could eventually land there and figure it out from landing there. But all I'm getting at is if you don't know the path, it's pretty hard to actually get there.
Agreed. And that's the whole thing. Like, interesting enough, here's a perfect example of like today I shut down one of my businesses. Obviously, you don't open a business to shut it down. However, this is part of me living my best life of letting go that's of something that is clearly not serving me, my family, it was causing a lot. I'm transparent. You'll get to learn that about me, causing a lot of financial stress for us. And it was like, we have to cauterize this. And the beauty in letting go to move forward is exceptional. And that is still me living my best life and being authentic about the honesty of the journey. And I think there's something to be said when you can be in a spot to share those kinds of things and create something that's relatable so people don't feel like they're failures, right? I remember looking and scrolling and being all like, oh, because we always want to know people that are further along the road than we are. And I think that's beautiful. And we have to fall to catch up. It's just, it's life, it's part of life. So I'm always so honest about the failures because they bring me to my greatness. It has happened time and time again. And I honor that and I respect it. And honestly, Corey, I find the joy in it, which most people don't. I don't play the victim card. It's like, I'm here to learn, teach me the way.
Mm. Wow. And so that, I mean, that's another good point that I'd like to ask you about is people that don't reach that stage, meaning like they don't reach the stage of living their best life, or they don't even reach the stage where you say, this is somebody that makes sense for me to work for. What do you think their struggle is? Like, and when I say this, I'm kind of reaching for, what do you think is the reason that so many people don't live their best life? And again, I know there's probably all kinds of different areas we can push towards on this, but yeah, just thinking about what is it do you think is the obstacle for a lot of people in living their best life?
I can tell you only from my personal experience. I think this one's the one that is really going to land because you're right. There's so many avenues. Is that we can be integral humans and show up for everyone else. When we start breaking our promises to ourselves, and I am, this is like me. When I start breaking my promise to myself because I want to show up so deeply and authentic for others, it's actually an act of not loving myself.
Hmm.
And so this is kind of the work right now for me is like, I love to be there to help others, to create space for them to be seen and heard. And I also need to do that for myself, mentally, physically, spiritually. So that's the pattern I'm on right now. When we are not living our best lives, not to say, hey, the economy sucks right now and all that stuff. The thing is, Corey, is when you dive in and get really real with yourself about, hey, why do I have this extra weight on me? Hey, why do I have all those bills piling up? Et cetera, et cetera. It's all encompassing from a core of what can I do to best love myself so I can walk with integrity and that promise to myself to
Hmm.
show up with more strength.
Wow. I mean, I love what you're talking about in the sense of taking responsibility for ourselves to own up to say, why is this not working for me? What part do I play in it? I mean, one of the things I feel like is a struggle for a lot of people is so I talk about this thing often called E plus R equals O. And what that stands for is the event plus your response equals your outcome. So event happens, price of gas goes up, economy issues happening, what have you, inflation. We can't control that event. We can't change it on our own usually. But what we can control is our response, which will dictate our outcome. I share this with people often, and I learned it from Jack Canfield, and he learned it from W. Clement Stone, and who knows where he learned it from. But the point being is that when I share this with people, a lot of people like it and say this is going to change everything, because then they start realizing they have say over one aspect of it, even if they can't change the event. Because people are like, this always happens to me. Yeah, but what do you do once it does? So some people get empowered by that. But what I also find is some people get defensive. And I feel like the reason, Anita, they get defensive is because if they really accept this to be true, that means who they are right now is a result of how they responded to past events, good or bad. Now, I'm not going to say it's all inclusive. Good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people. I'm not trying to say, it's an all inclusive, like you are exactly who you are because of every decision you made. But I think there's something to that. Like maybe I could say 60 to 70% of who you are today is because of the decisions you made. But it still means you have to look at and say some of who I am is a result of decisions I made when an event happened to me or for me. And so I love what you're talking about here because I find that's missing these days. We've kind of thrown accountability out the door, and everybody kind of seems to say, well, not everybody, I'm generalizing, but a lot of people say, well, it's not my fault this happened, or I had no control over that, or this person did this to me. But like I said, where's our part in it? If it's going to change, it's up to me. So where's my part in it, and how what I think until I'm ready to accept that I have some responsibility in this, I'm probably never going to get to where I ultimately want to get to. So I just want to, I guess, compliment you and commend you for talking about taking responsibility, because I think there's a lot of lack of that these days.
Absolutely. And I remember having that aha moment of going, it's me actually. And it always comes like that aha moment usually comes from an impact of something that was transformative in your life. And it's just like now every time there is something that's presented that does not feel good on, I'm like, okay, so what's my role in this? This is like all the time. I remember when I first met my husband, he's like, wow, you really look at yourself first. And I'm like, I have to because I'm part of the equation. I need to look at myself.
Absolutely. And like I said, I mean, I think there's a lot of that not happening. And so it's for me, it's refreshing when somebody does. You know, I I I will say for me, it was a hard learned lesson. Like I never want to pretend like I just came about this naturally. I mean, I struggled growing up. I was raised by a single mother. My father wasn't a part of my life. We struggled money wise. I barely graduated high school. I got a 49 plus one in one of my classes. So I always say I technically didn't graduate. A teacher gave me the plus one to allow me to graduate. So I'm not going to say this wisdom was just something I naturally had or understood. But at some point, I had to take responsibility for who my part in that. Like meaning like this stuff happened to me, and so what? Now I have to decide what I do with that. Like I didn't read my first book until age 27. I had to decide once, I had to decide at a certain point and said, if the knowledge that I need, and especially then, now you can get the knowledge everywhere, podcasts everywhere. But if the knowledge I need is mostly in books, I have to decide when I'm going to buckle up and say it's on me to start reading those books. And I will say I started late, but the first book I read was How to Win Friends and Influence People. Second book I read was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And I always said, if you're going to start late, that's a good way to catch up. And both
Yeah.
those books really teach you about taking responsibility. Those books are about what can you do to make your life better. And so I didn't come by this easily, but I will tell you that people say to me now, "You're so lucky. You got to meet this guy or girl. You got to hang out with this person. You got to go and sit at so and so's house." And I always say, if you only knew how much work went into becoming lucky, and part of that was me saying, I have a part in this. So I'm a little bit on a soapbox here, Anita, but it's because you spoke the magic words to me, which is taking responsibility and realizing what I can do to live my best life. Because I don't think for most people it's just going to find you.
Well, it's not, and that's the reality. You have to go find. I didn't realize how much of a similar upbringing you and I had, very mirrored. So thank you for sharing that. And the thing was, even in all of that, my big mission now, because I've been on so many podcasts about how did you create all this success? How did you, all these businesses, blah, 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 blah. I became that girl, woman, human that was like, oh, must be nice. She's so lucky. Of course she's doing that. Of course she's in rooms with these people. And that's when the switch went off for me last year is like, I'm actually going to share my story of where I came from and all the pain that came, the struggles, et cetera, not because I'm special, is because people need to see, like you, I didn't just show up here today. It came with some heavy stuff that I have no resentment for. I have actual love and gratitude for. So that for me now has become part of my, I guess, I don't know if mission's the right word, part of my walk and talk. I don't want to be, oh, must be nice. Of course she's this. Of course, that. Not interested.
So I love that. And I want to follow up by asking you for you from your, I guess, perspective, but in general, for you, um, do you have certain habits or traits that you practice on a regular basis that allow you to either maintain that, like whether, whether it's a gratitude practice or things like that, or anything that you can share with people that has been either game changing or difference making for you?
Absolutely. So I would say for sure the prayer, meditation, yoga, hiking, those are like being in like nature for me is like a supercharged premium Chevron 94 gasoline for my body. Bottom line. And it's so interesting. When I've hit huge successes in businesses, I was journaling and writing it to paper. I fell off that train for probably a couple years. I just got back into journaling and it's like, why was I away for so long? Why was I not loving myself? Because that's what was happening. I was definitely not loving myself. Not It's funny how little practices can be game changing. It helps you literally click or flip the page on the self sabotage BS that you are filling your mind with, even if you're not saying it out loud, your thoughts. And that journaling for me has been next level to be like, okay, see you later. Bye bye, imposter. You're not real. So that's what I've been up to.
Well, now you've wanted me to ask, I guess, a follow-up question around that is I'm always curious about this when people say journaling, because I think there's different ways you can journal. So different aspects to it. Some people I think just write down what's on their mind. Some people literally journal on here's what I'm doing in my business. Like I feel there's different things you can journal. So what does journaling look like for you? Like, is it like a diary? Is it like here's what I did today? Like, what does that mean to you? Like when you sit down and write and journal, what does that look like?
And I'm going to tell you, I love that you asked that because I think why I stayed away for 2 years is because when I was journaling previously, it was all about business and finance. I
Wow.
mean, money's necessary to live. We shouldn't be ashamed to make money, bottom line. Because this one business was becoming very transactional and I'm about more transformational, it like set me back and threw me off the train for journaling. So when I came back to journaling, and it came from tough love with a hormone expert I'm working with, and I was just like, this feels ugly on, and it felt ugly on because of the PTSD of what I was doing previously. So today, my journaling is about all things in life that I'm feeling.
Mm.
When people use the word success, and I was this person, it was success people think is like nominal, right? It's like, how much money can I make? Oh, this. Success for me is like spiritual, mental, physical peace and abundance
Mm.
in those areas. So when I journal, every day is a different journey of like, where am I today? Gratitude, dialing in on like the love I need to give my kids because sometimes I get so caught up in like what I'm doing to create such a ripple effect in the world that I'm like, hey, mama, even the adults still need you. Like, scale back. You need to dial in with that. We forget that because we're chasing the things. And it's not, again, I don't want to make it a bad thing to be like of service, create impact, obviously create a beautiful lifestyle that you are deserving and worthy of. However, relationships, which is what I talk about, community, connection, belonging, relationships and having those healthy ones with your family, with your friends, with your partner, et cetera, is really instrumental for me, foundational work.
Mm. Wow. Amen. Well, for me, it's like, well, and that's why I was curious. But for me, I struggled with this, and you know, like all of us, I still, when I say struggled, the struggle's never over, but I just mean it's less struggle now. But I struggled with this and still do at times what you just mentioned about chasing the thing
Mhm.
that, even like, I've learned, for me, I need to enjoy the journey, which I spend time doing. Years ago, I just enjoyed the destination and I didn't even enjoy it that much. Now I enjoy the journey and that makes the destination better, but I still admittedly am chasing the destination. And so I still get lost in that. And I have two young kids. And every now and then I have to do a check-in, you know, because my
Mhm.
head's, when I get home, my head could be in. Now, what I do, which is different than a lot of entrepreneurs I know from my, just from experience and friends and what have you, is most days I start after 9 and I shut down at 5. So it's like I work like a 9 to 5 job. But what I thought that meant for you, because I used to be like the person when my wife and I first got together, I would be working evenings and all that. And then I decided, my own deciding, she didn't talk me into it, that I needed to focus more on shutting it down. You know, I put in 20 some years of doing that. I should have the right now if I want to work 4 days a week or 5 or what have you. But I started shutting down at 5. But what I realized, Anita, and I still realize every now and then, is I didn't shut down at 5. I stopped working at 5, but my head's still working until 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. And sometimes when I fall asleep, I'm waking up and I'm having those weird half dreams, half awake. And I'm thinking, oh, we should do this. And I'm thinking of a business idea that I might not even remember in the morning. But in the haze, I remember going, oh, I should do this. So I'm even like still working sometimes when I'm sleeping. And sometimes it never gets written on paper. So it's not even a good thing. So what I'm getting at is that I'm shutting down, but I'm really not shutting down. And so, to your point, I always have to constantly remind myself that is important. And I find for me, if I'm, we have a sauna, or not a sauna, a spa, or a, yeah, sauna. Sorry, sauna. We have a sauna, and so, you know, if I go in the sauna in a day, and if I do go for a walk, or you mentioned about nature, if I do those things, I find those are the days. Interestingly, I shut down more once the evening comes. But if I'm not doing any of those things and I'm just getting along, going along, I find that when I get home, I'm still thinking, oh, I should reply to so and so. Oh, what about that thing? Even if I'm not working, and I might not turn on my, I might not go on Messenger the whole night, I might not go on email the whole night, but I'm still doing the do. And so, to your point, I think it is important for us to keep reminding ourselves. And I think if you fall off the horse, which entrepreneurs, we're probably going to fall off the horse in that area, I think the most important thing is you remember to get back on, so that I constantly say, am I doing this again? Am I taking away from my kids tonight because I'm in my head? And they're kids, so they'll find something else to do. But really, I don't want them to have that time later and say my dad was, you know, he was never really there, even though he was there. That was a long tangent to say this is my constant reminder.
I love it. And it's so true. I love that analogy used about falling off the horse. You're actually, I physically was seeing you falling off, seeing myself falling off, and then thinking of the muscles that we are actually empowering and strengthening to get back on. And that's the stuff that excites me.
Yeah, I know it's so true. I mean, I think it's as long as you're always striving, whatever that looks like. So one of the things for me is I've I go through ups and downs with am I eating healthy as I know I should be, or am I working out? You know, like I used to, for 12 solid years, I 5 days a week easily I was working out. And as I, you know, in later years now with two kids and stuff, it's easy to make excuses and miss those workouts and stuff. And but what I always am conscious of is like if I have a bad day where I'm not eating like I should be, when I wake up the next morning, it's like, oh yeah, I got to change this today. So I always feel we get a do-over the next day. So I don't beat myself up. But I think the biggest thing is somebody told me one time in an interview, and I always love this. I said, what's your biggest fear? And she said, my biggest fear is I'll stop caring about getting better. Not that I'll stop getting better, that I'll stop giving a crap. And so she had lost a bunch of weight and she had started competing in fitness things and everything. And she said her biggest fear was that she would go back to not even caring. And I think that's what my thing is. My biggest fear, not my biggest fear, but a fear of mine is that I'll get into this place where I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'd rather be in the place of saying, okay, today wasn't that great, but tomorrow I get a new day. So as long as we, I think, keep trying to live our best day, then sometimes we get it right. So I just wanted to, you know, talk on there for a second because I do think it's important for us to recognize we are human, we can make mistakes, But as long as we never quote unquote give up, meaning don't get back on the horse, we never truly fail. And we always get a new chance to make a new day. So I wanted to ask you, shifting gears a bit, as we start sort of winding down, I have two main questions, Anita, I like to ask everybody. First one is called the passenger question. And it was really inspired by my new book, which is not out yet, but coming out soon. And that's what inspired the Enlightened Passenger show. But it was built around this question of strangers on a plane and what they would tell the other person based on life advice if they had a chance. So the question to you is, if you're sitting next to a stranger on a plane, they leaned over and said, "Hi, I'm a stranger." They wouldn't say it that way, but I'm a stranger, Anita, whose name I shouldn't really know. If I need some life advice, what do you got? What do you think you might tell that stranger?
Well, it's funny because those things happen to me often because I am on planes a lot and I do meet individuals. And the thing for me is I never give advice. I do love sharing wisdom from the heart of personal journey.
Mm-hmm.
Along will come, the business aspect of it. I guess the focus really for me is just really living an authentic life, being an integral human being, showing up for me. And I say this, and I've already said it on the podcast, I was put on this earth to be of service to others. I think part of that is to help heal the little 5-year-old Anita because she didn't have a voice. And so it's a big reason why create space with others, collaborate with others. Don't be in competition because the reality is you're only in competition with yourself. So I think just sharing nuggets like that of how do you want to show up in your life? I really, being the catalyst for transforming your passion into purpose.
Mm.
That's what the conversation would focus around.
So I'm going to ask you a follow-up question, which is very similar, and you may have even already touched on it with something I caught you that you said there. But the follow-up question is what I call the time machine question. And so this question is related to younger Anita versus stranger on a plane. So the time machine question is if you could jump into a time machine, go back and talk to a younger version of yourself, give her some life advice based on what you've learned in the years since, what do you think you might say to younger Anita?
Yeah, I've been asked this question before, and it would definitely be that, use your voice, talk to your mom, tell her what has happened. And you are beautiful, you are worthy, and you are deserving of great things. And just hold her and tell her that she's loved. My father also left. So, I mean, I had trust issues with men for, probably a couple decades for sure. So just that reassurance that she is enough and yeah, just holding her and loving her and reminding her or letting her know that there are exceptional humans waiting to be there for her to help her along her way.
Wow, amazing. And so the last question, which I'll call the unofficial question, is if you if somebody heard all the insight you've shared today, they'd love to work with you, they'd love to collaborate with you, learn more about the work that you do. Is there a hub or a place you'd normally send them?
Absolutely. So, two major hubs. One would be my website, www.anitaparker.ca, and the other one is Instagram, Anita Best Life. And that's where you can connect with me and would love to chat with you and see what incredible things we can do together.
Amazing. Anita Parker, this has been an absolute pleasure. I knew it would be. With your permission, I'll call it a to be continued, and then I'll say to everybody else, till next time.
Absolutely. Can't wait to come back. Thank you for having me. It's an absolute honor.
Likewise. Thanks, my friend. Grab your copy of The Enlightened Passenger and the bonuses at thisisthebook.com.